Let's talk about Metal Eden and its demo that just released. It's a fast, sharp, first-person shooter that's still in development, but already has me paying close attention. It's being made by Reikon Games, the same team behind Ruiner. And if you play that one, you probably remember how unique it felt. Tight top-down action, a striking sci-fi aesthetic, and a UI that looked like it came from another timeline. It wasn't a perfect game, but it absolutely had an identity. So when I heard they were working on something new, and this time it's in first person, something I always wanted them to do after Ruiner, because it just screams like it would be amazing. I was immediately curious about Metal Eden. Not just cautious, not just hyped, but very excited on where Reikon Games is heading. And now that I've played the demo, I'm really sold on the vision, I have to say. It opens up with a short atmospheric cutscene, no over-explaining, no cinematic fluff, just enough world building to set the mood. And then it just gives you the control. And the moment you start moving, it clicks. The movement's tight, the tone is focused, and the combat has this layered rhythm to it. It feels like Reikon is evolving, not just copying what worked before, but really pushing forward here. So this video is going to be my full breakdown on the Metal Eden demo, what's working, what's not, and why this game is really on my radar right now. One of the first things that hit me once I got control was just how right the movement feels. You move fast, dodging feels really crisp. The jetpack that you have adds an extra layer to this vertical play that doesn't feel very gimmicky. It's reactive. You can chain dodges, mantle up ledges without getting stuck on them, and everything responds exactly when you expect it to. There's also fuel management involved as well, so you can't just float forever. But that kind of micromanagement didn't feel like a chore. It made me more aware on how I moved. And that's something most shooters forget to do, to be honest. And while the mobility is solid, I kept wishing there was one more piece to the puzzle. Wall kicking. There were a few moments, especially when I was chaining jumps or fighting near vertical spaces, where my brain expected to be able to kick off a wall and redirect my movement. Kind of like Apex Legends style. And it's not in the game here, but honestly, it really feels like it should be. It's a very small thing, but adding that one mechanic would take the already fluid system and open it up even more. The standout mechanic in Metal Eden is the core extraction system. You hit E on a smaller or a staggered enemy, and you rip out their cores. It's violent, it's satisfying, and it actually changes how you approach fights. You can chuck the core out like a bomb to the enemy, or absorb it to charge up a huge melee attack, the super punch. And that super punch matters a lot mechanically. It shreds through armor specifically. It opens up tougher enemies, in a way bullets just don't do anything. There is also a cooldown on how often you can extract, and sometimes that slows things down a bit, especially if you clear out all the weak enemies and get stuck on the tank you can't crack. But in most cases, it works. It forces you to think beyond just your weapons. You're managing cooldowns, watching core pickups, and deciding how aggressive you can afford to be. It reminded me a lot of Metal Gear Rising Zandatsu. Kinda less surgical, but a lot more tactical and flexible. It's not just there to look cool, it changes how you play. Also, the weapons in Metal Eden feel like they were designed by people who actually care about how guns feel, not just how they look. The default suppressed SMG has infinite ammo, but it overheats if you lean on it too hard. It's a small touch, but it changes everything. Instead of worrying about ammo pickups, you're paying attention to tempo. It naturally encourages you to switch up things mid-fight without punishing you for sticking to a favorite, even though the default gun feels really good. And the switching, it's super snappy between weapons. There's no clunk or delay, it just click, switch, go. As you play, you start unlocking secondary fire modes on all the weapons that you get, and it gives you more options when fighting. The pistol, for example, gets this charge alt-fire, like a mini explosive railgun. Stuff like that is what makes it really feel alive. It's less about the raw stats and more about options, right? Even the sounds and animations hit. Weapons don't just exist, they really punch, they pop, they announce themselves. It's really good stuff. What really surprised me in the demo wasn't just the enemies, it was how they force you to think on your feet. You've got the small ones, the big tanks, and some weird shielded beetle looking things that basically take no damage from gunfire unless you break their stance. Or you get a charged core and do the super punch. That alone makes you change how you approach a room. You can't just strafe and spray your way through it all. You gotta stagger, extract, dodge, and actually adapt. Plus, with the cooldown being a thing, you need to find a cooldown pickup for that ability. And killing the small mobs also reduces the cooldown. And the pickups are scattered across the arena, and they seem to respawn in a short timer. That subtle design choice ends up being pretty crucial. It lets you create a loop, a kind of on-the-fly strategy where you're collecting what you need without totally losing pace. The ammo, the cores, the energy, the HP. There's a rhythm to it. That said, I did run into a few moments where I cleared the smaller enemies too quickly, and I got a little stuck on the fully armored dudes, and I had no cores. It stalls the flow a bit. You can still technically punch them and it staggers them slightly, but it wasn't the best feeling. Maybe there's a way to balance that out, either through pacing, enemy respawns, or some sort of backup mechanic when you're out of options. Maybe a weak point or something. This is the kind of combat that makes you want to replay it just to see how differently you can handle it. But now, as much as I enjoyed the flow of the demo, there were a few technical details that started rubbing the wrong way. They're small stuff, but stuff that still breaks immersion fast for me. First off, motion blur. That was tied to the overall post-processing setting, which means if you want to turn it off, you gotta sacrifice visual quality across the board. That's a little rough. I would say let players toggle that stuff independently, especially for a fast-paced shooter where clarity matters. Motion blur is disgusting. Like, I don't even know why it's in video games. And then there's the mouse sensitivity settings. I had to put it to the lowest setting, and that still wasn't enough for me to have the sense I wanted. And I usually run about 1400 DPI, and I had to drop it to 400 just to get the game to feel right. I could excuse these things for older games back in the day, you know, 2010 and stuff like that. You need to support the really high DPI sensitivity mice. So I would like to be able to adjust it even further down than what the game currently has. Also, I might be blind on this one, but I can't seem to change hotkeys for how I can extract cores and what a button can be for consuming the core and stuff like that. It all seems to be blended together onto the E button, but I can't change it. I would like more control over that. If I want grabbing the core to be E and then maybe consuming the core will be like mouse 5 or something. Obviously, none of these are deal breakers, but they're the kind of things that just stack up if left unpolished, right? And honestly, the rest of the game feels way too sharp for these rough edges to stick around. I think Reikon know what they're doing for the most part, so I think these might get ironed out, we'll see. Especially the motion blur. If there's one area that Metal Eden feels unmistakably Reikon games, it's the art direction. The game looks incredibly clean, not in a sterile way, but in that sharp, deliberate, visually striking way that they nailed in Ruiner last time. This world doesn't scream at you with neon noise. It just exists with confidence. You believe in this world. The environments are really polished, but not over-designed. There's clarity in the chaos, and that makes it way easier to read fights while soaking in this atmosphere. It's got that industrial future vibe with just the right amount of grime and glow. And the weapons? Man, easily some of the best looking and sounding I've come across in a while. Each one feels distinct visually, sonically, and mechanically. They don't blur together at all. You know what you're holding, and honestly, that matters a lot. Reikon's always had a unique visual language, and it's clear they're still evolving it, making it leaner, sharper, more mature, and it's one of the main reasons this demo stuck out with me after I closed it. The thing that didn't stuck out with me, though, is the main character. Everything around the main character looks great, but she doesn't really stand out, at least not for me. And that's kind of a bummer, especially when I think back to Ruiner. The game had a protagonist who barely spoke, but was instantly memorable for me. The glowing mask, the glitchy UI overlays, the video that it displays as his reactions and emotions. It was really simple, but man, it really left a mark for me. Metal Eden's lead character, by contrast, feels more on the generic side. There's nothing particularly wrong with her design, it just feels really safe. There's nothing super eye-catching about her. She seems a little forgettable, and that's in a game that oozes style from every other corner. She feels like that one element still waiting for its identity. And hey, maybe I'm saying this too early by just only playing the demo, which was like an hour or so for me. And maybe there's more in the story that'll give her more weight, but I can't help but feel like this is an opportunity to push harder, to give her a silhouette, a design motive, something that makes her stick out. Because in a game like this, where immersion matters and you're seeing everything through her perspective, the character you embody should be memorable as well. Now that I've wrapped up the demo, I just keep thinking about how much potential Metal Eden has. And not in that vague, oh, it could be cool later kind of way. Even in its rougher edges, even though it's already pretty polished, it seems, it already feels like something worth paying attention to. The movement's tight, the combat has purpose. The core extraction mechanic, that's a really unique mechanic. It makes you rethink fights in a way most shooters don't even bother to ask. But yeah, that's it. This video was just a small way to share some feedback, and if it reaches the developers, and just put any kind of spotlight on the game that I'm genuinely excited about. If Metal Eden looks like something up your alley too, check out the Steam page and toss it on your wishlist. It helps more than you think to the devs. And with that, thanks for watching.